By the time Marcus Layton stood in the middle of Vale House and said, "You can put your name on the door, Amara, but we both know you would not have any of this without me," the boutique had already gone silent enough for every woman in the room to hear what he truly meant. He did not come to shop. He did not come to remember. He did not even come for the woman on his arm, though Celeste Marin stood beside him in pale blue silk, beautiful and unaware that she had been brought there as a witness to someone else's humiliation. Marcus came because Amara Vale had built something he could no longer touch, and men like Marcus did not forgive women for becoming powerful after leaving them behind. Outside, Vale House looked untouchable beneath a bright Cheongdam sun. Tall glass windows reflected the clean movement of luxury cars, pale stone columns framed the entrance, and the store's name rested above the door in restrained gold lettering, elegant enough to whisper instead of shout. From the street, it looked as though Vale House had always belonged among Seoul's most polished fashion houses. But 12 years earlier, it had been one rented room above a bakery, 3 racks of sample dresses, a broken heater, and a black American woman sewing after midnight because she could not afford to be tired. That woman was Amara Vale, and Marcus's greatest mistake was believing the frightened version of her he once knew was still living somewhere beneath the silk, the gold, and the name on the door. If this story already has you, subscribe and stay with me, because some women do not become powerful by shouting back. Sometimes they become powerful when they finally understand they do not have to explain their worth to the people determined not to see it. That morning had begun beautifully. Inside Vale House, light moved gently across cream walls, champagne velvet chairs, gold-framed mirrors, and gowns spaced with the reverence of art. Nothing in Amara's boutique felt rushed. A woman did not enter Vale House to be sold something. She entered to be received. She entered to remember that elegance did not have to apologize for itself. Amara stood near the center display, adjusting the cuff of a pearl-embroidered cream jacket with quiet precision. She wore a black silk blouse tucked into ivory-tailored trousers, her hair drawn into a polished low bun at the nape of her neck, her small gold earrings catching just enough light to soften the severity of her focus. A junior stylist watched her hands, learning not just technique but temperament, because Amara never handled clothing as if it were fabric alone. To her, a sleeve was permission to move. A neckline was a boundary. A gown was a woman's private courage made visible. "Not so tight at the wrist," Amara said softly. "The woman wearing it should feel like she can breathe." Across the boutique, Evelyn Cross approached with a tablet against her chest. Evelyn had the sharp elegance of someone who had survived enough wealthy clients to fear very little, and she knew Amara's face well enough to see storms before they reached the room. "The Ellison bride is in the private salon," Evelyn said. "Her mother is asking whether the veil is too simple." Amara smiled faintly. "Does she mean too simple?" "She means it does not look expensive enough to make her sister jealous." A soft laugh passed between them, barely disturbing the stillness of the boutique. "Tea first," Amara said. "Then the cathedral veil." "Not champagne?" "Champagne makes mothers brave." For one fleeting moment, everything was as Amara had fought to make it. Elegant, peaceful, alive, and hers. Then the bell above the glass door chimed, and Marcus Layton stepped into the life Amara had built without him. He paused just inside the entrance, with Celeste on his arm, dressed in a navy suit cut to flatter a man who still wanted rooms to forgive him quickly. Time had polished him but had not softened him. His hair carried a little silver now, and his smile had learned restraint, but the cruelty behind it was exactly as Amara remembered. Charming from a distance, poisonous up close, Celeste looked around with open curiosity. She was elegant, yes, but her confidence had the fragile shine of a woman who had been told she was entering a room where another woman would be jealous of her. Amara understood that before Celeste said a word. Marcus had brought her here with a story already planted in her mind, and Amara could see the shape of it in the way Celeste looked at the store, then at her, searching for bitterness and finding only composure. Marcus's gaze traveled over the gowns, the mirrors, the marble, the quiet staff, the clients pretending not to look. His smile widened when he saw Amara. "Well," he said, loud enough to carry, "look at this." Amara's fingers remained lightly against the pearl cuff. For one heartbeat, the boutique fell away, and she was in the old studio again, standing over unpaid invoices, while Marcus leaned in the doorway and told her that talent was not enough. Back then, his help had arrived, wearing the language of rescue. Later, she learned that what he called support was only control waiting for gratitude to become a chain. But she was not in that room anymore. "Marcus," she said calmly, "welcome to Vale House." His mouth curved at the name, as if the sound of it offended him. Vale House. That still makes me laugh. Evelyn stopped, halfway to the private salon. Amara turned politely to Celeste. "I'm Amara Vale." "Celeste," the woman said, after a small hesitation that told Amara everything. "Welcome. Let us know if you need assistance." Amara began to turn back toward her work, and Marcus laughed softly, not because anything was amusing, but because he wanted the room to understand that he had the power to interrupt her. He walked deeper into the boutique, letting his fingers drift over a rack of evening gowns, before stopping at the cream jacket Amara had just adjusted. Then he touched it without asking. He pinched the beaded sleeve between two fingers, not admiring the craftsmanship, but testing it, handling it with the casual disrespect of a man who wanted to remind her that he had once touched everything in her life without permission. Evelyn stepped forward immediately. "Sir, our custom pieces are handled with assistance." Marcus turned to her as if a piece of furniture had objected. "Custom pieces, of course." Then his attention returned to Amara. "Is this what you do now? Train people to speak for you?" "No," Amara said. "This is what I do now. I hire people who know their value." Celeste's expression shifted, only slightly, but Marcus noticed it and disliked it. He had expected Amara to become smaller in front of his new woman. Instead, the room seemed to be growing around her. Still, he smiled. "Do they know?" No one moved. A client near the mirrors paused over a pale gold gown. A stylist with a measuring tape in her hands looked down and pretended not to hear. Evelyn's eyes sharpened, but Amara remained still. Marcus leaned against the display table. "Do they know who helped you get this started? Or do you let everyone believe this was some inspirational little self-made miracle?" In expensive rooms, people did not gasp. They became quiet. Their attention sharpened behind manners. That was what happened inside Vale House. The boutique did not become chaotic. It became watchful. Amara looked at Marcus with professional calm. "What are you shopping for today?" For a moment, insult flashed across his face. She had treated him like an ordinary customer. Worse, like an interruption she could still manage. "That is what I always admired about you," he said, voice turning louder by inches. "You could turn anything into presentation." Evelyn moved closer to Amara's side, protective without being theatrical. She knew enough about Marcus to understand he was not a ghost from Amara's past. He was a man who had come to prove he could still create damage. "Mr. Layton," Evelyn said, "you are disturbing our clients." "Are you her manager?" "I am." "Then you should probably know this entire place exists because she had someone willing to take a chance on her." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "This place exists because Ms. Vale works harder before breakfast than most people work in a week." Amara's eyes softened for a second, and Marcus, true to habit, mistook affection for weakness. He had always misread people that way. Kindness became dependence. Silence became guilt. A woman's restraint became evidence that she was afraid of what he might say next. But Amara knew better now. She touched Evelyn's arm lightly, not to silence her, but to let her know this wound belonged to Amara, and so did the choice of how to close it. Marcus saw the exchange and smiled like a man who thought he had recovered control. He had not. He had only mistaken the room again. Marcus turned his body just enough to give the boutique his profile, as if all these women in silk and heels and half-fitted gowns had gathered for him to explain Amara to them. "When I first met her," he said, letting his voice carry, "she was working out of a room so small she could barely fit 2 mannequins inside. The private salon door opened, and the Ellison bride appeared in an unfinished gown, her veil pinned loosely, her mother behind her with one hand pressed against her chest. Amara saw them, but did not move. The younger version of her might have rushed to explain, apologized too much, tried to shepherd everyone away from the scene so no one would see the old wound exposed. But this Amara had learned the difference between privacy and shame. She had talent, Marcus continued. I will give her that. But talent does not pay rent. Talent does not negotiate with suppliers. Talent does not convince people with money to take you seriously. He was almost smiling now, feeding on the attention, unaware that the room was not admiring him. It was studying him. I opened doors, I made calls, I got meetings. I introduced her to people who would not have looked twice at her otherwise. His eyes slid toward the gold letters above the door. You can put your name on the door, Amara, but we both know you would not have any of this without me. The sentence landed where he meant it to land. For one moment, Amara felt the old studio around her again. She remembered the supplier meetings Marcus took without telling her, the investor call where he described her designs as our vision, the contract draft where her own name had been conveniently missing until she found it past midnight and demanded it be changed. She remembered leaving him without drama, just a document on a table and Marcus smiling as he told her she would be back in 6 months. 6 months later, she had been sewing alone. 1 year later, she had 3 loyal clients. 12 years later, he was standing in her boutique, trying to claim credit for the house he failed to destroy. Amara looked at him calmly. Are you finished? The question struck harder because it was quiet. Marcus blinked. What? Are you finished? Because my clients came here for appointments, not for your performance. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face before anger covered it. You think you are above me now? No, Amara said. I think I am beyond this conversation. Celeste's gaze shifted from Marcus to Amara, and for the first time, her certainty weakened. The bride stepped forward in the unfinished gown, the hem still unmarked, the bodice pinned at one shoulder. She should have looked vulnerable that way, half-dressed for the most photographed day of her life, but instead she looked suddenly very brave. Do you want us to leave? She asked Amara. Amara turned toward her, and something in the question touched a place Marcus had not been able to reach. No, she said. You do not have to leave. The bride nodded. And neither do you. Her mother, who had spent the morning worrying whether the veil looked expensive enough, lifted her chin toward Marcus with perfect social disapproval. My daughter came here because Ms. Vale understands elegance. I see now she understands more than that. A soft current moved through the room. No applause, no spectacle, just the quiet repositioning of loyalty. Clients who had looked cautious now looked offended on Amara's behalf. Staff who had been waiting for instruction now stood taller. Even Celeste looked as if she had begun hearing Marcus differently, not as the injured man he had described himself to be, but as the man standing in someone else's business, trying to make cruelty sound like truth. Marcus laughed, but the sound was too thin to command the room. You people have no idea what you are watching. Amara looked at him. We know exactly what we are watching. And that was when his face changed, because for the first time since entering Vale House, Marcus realized the room was not slipping away from Amara. It was slipping away from him. He stepped closer, close enough that Amara could smell the same cologne he had worn years ago, and the memory of it moved through her body before she could stop it. The younger version of her would have stepped back. She would have made herself smaller before realizing she had done it. She would have tried to soothe him, reason with him, give him a softer version of the truth so he would not become crueler. This time, she did not move. You are not fooling anyone, he said, lowering his voice though everyone near them could still hear. You can stand here in silk and gold and pretend you do not remember what you were before me. Amara's face remained composed, but inside her, the old room opened fully. The broken heater, the invoices, the bolt of ivory silk bought with grocery money. Marcus in the doorway, smiling as he told her she needed him. How relief it felt like rescue then. How rescue had become permission. How permission had become control. Then she remembered something else. The first morning after she left him, when she unlocked the studio alone and thought the silence would kill her. It had not. It had taught her to listen for herself. I remember exactly who I was, Amara said. Marcus smiled. Good, and that is why I know exactly who you are. His smile disappeared. Across the street, Dominic Hahn watched from the back seat of a black sedan parked beneath a row of ginkgo trees. He had arrived early because his meeting had ended sooner than expected, and because loving Amara had made him unexpectedly fond of ordinary surprises. On the seat beside him sat a small wooden box containing pearl earrings from Busan, chosen because they were quiet, precise, and unmistakable. Like her, his driver had noticed Marcus enter. "Should I call security, sir?" Dominic did not answer at first. He watched the scene through the boutique windows. Marcus moving too close, Evelyn standing ready, Amara holding herself with the kind of calm that had cost her something. "She decides when I enter," Dominic said. The driver glanced back through the mirror. Dominic's eyes remained on Vale House. "She has spent too much of her life being spoken over by men who thought they knew what was best for her. I will not become one of them because I love her." Then Marcus leaned in again, and Dominic saw the smallest change in Amara's face. Not fear, recognition of pain. Dominic knew that difference. He reached for the door. Inside, Marcus had stopped pretending he was there for anything but harm. "You should be careful," he said. "About what?" Amara asked. "About pretending the past cannot touch you." Evelyn stepped forward again, but Amara's stillness held her back. Marcus's voice lowered. "I know how this began. I know what you owed. I know how easily people change their minds when they hear the right version of a story. A lie does not become true because you say it in a room full of strangers." Marcus's mouth curved. "No, but it becomes useful." There it was, not heartbreak, not old business, not even resentment dressed as justice. The truth of him stood naked in that sentence. He had come to weaponize noise because he knew the facts would not love him back. Amara looked at him, and something in her face settled into a colder calm. "Leave," she said. Marcus smiled. "Or what?" The bell above the door chimed. Dominic Hahn entered Vale House wearing a dark tailored coat over a charcoal suit, and he did it without haste, without entourage, without the theatrical cruelty Marcus would have understood more easily. He simply stepped inside, and the room changed around him. Not everyone knew his name, but everyone understood the way silence rearranged itself when he entered. Marcus turned with irritation first, then recognition. Dominic Hahn was the kind of man people mentioned carefully in private rooms, polished enough for board meetings, feared enough for men like Marcus to reconsider the shape of their own arrogance. His companies were legitimate. His influence was not entirely explainable. His power did not ask to be believed. It arrived already understood. But Dominic did not look at Marcus first. He looked at Amara. The severity of his face softened only for her. "Are you all right?" For the first time since Marcus entered, Amara allowed herself to look at someone who did not need a performance of strength from her. "Yes." Dominic studied her for 1 second longer, not doubting her, simply reading what she had not said. Then he turned toward Marcus. "You were asked to leave." Marcus straightened his jacket, trying to recover the room. "This is between me and Amara." "It was between you and Amara when you lied to her in private," Dominic said. "It became everyone's concern when you threatened her in her business. And you are—" Dominic's expression did not move. "The man who heard enough." Marcus looked back at Amara, reaching for the old insult with a desperate hand. "So this is what you do now? Find powerful men to stand behind?" Before Dominic could answer, Amara did. "No," she said. "I built a life where powerful men stand beside me because they respect me." The room shifted again, and this time Marcus felt it. Dominic may have been feared, but this was Amara's world. Everyone in Vale House understood that now. Dominic turned to Amara, and the question he asked was simple enough to sound ordinary to anyone who did not understand power. "Would you like him removed?" Marcus's face changed. He understood it immediately. Dominic could have ordered Marcus out. He could have made the scene about his own anger, his own reputation, his own possession of the woman Marcus had tried to shame. He could have stepped in like a rescuer and made Amara smaller in the very room she had built. But he did not. He asked her, in her boutique, in front of her staff, in front of her clients, in front of the man who had spent years believing her choices belonged to him. Amara looked at Marcus and saw all at once the man he was and the man he had never been. Not the founder, not the savior, not the owner of her beginning, just a man who had stood close to the foundation and mistaken proximity for authorship. The woman he came looking for was gone. Not broken, gone. Yes, Amara said. The word did not echo. It did not need to. Vale House security moved from the back of the boutique with professional calm. Two men in dark suits approached Marcus, without drama, without aggression, without giving him the spectacle he would later try to use. The room watched him realize that the scene he had staged no longer belonged to him. "You are really doing this?" Marcus asked. "No, Marcus," Amara said. "You did this." Celeste turned toward him slowly. "You told me she stole from you," Marcus snapped. "She did." Amara said nothing. She did not need to. Every woman in that room had heard enough. Every silence had changed sides. Marcus had believed the loudest voice would control the story. He was learning too late that a room full of women could recognize a familiar pattern without needing every detail. Security guided Marcus toward the entrance. He resisted once, not enough to create violence, but enough to reveal humiliation. "This is not over," he said, and his voice cracked just slightly on the final word. Amara did not follow. She did not threaten him. She did not give him the reward of seeing her shake. "This ended years ago," she said. "You just did not understand it." Celeste followed him, but not close enough for her hand to touch his arm. Marcus noticed. Amara noticed. Dominic noticed. That was the first consequence, not the largest, not even close, but the first. At the glass doors, Marcus turned toward Dominic, with the last of his pride gathered badly around him. "You think you can scare me?" Dominic stepped closer. Not aggressively, not loudly, and that was what made Marcus go still. "You came here to remind Amara of who she used to be," Dominic said. Marcus swallowed. Dominic's voice lowered. "Now I will remind you of who you really are. You do not know anything about me." Dominic's eyes remained steady. "That is the first true thing you have said today." He did not touch Marcus. He did not raise a hand. He did not threaten violence in front of witnesses. He simply held Marcus's gaze long enough for the message to settle. Every lie had a shelf life. Every man who weaponized history eventually met someone who kept records. Then Dominic stepped back, and Marcus walked out into the bright soul afternoon with the gold letters of Vale House reflected behind him like a verdict. After the door closed, Vale House remained quiet. Not empty, not awkward. Quiet in the way a room becomes after a storm has passed and everyone inside realizes something important is still standing. Amara inhaled slowly, and only then did her hands tremble, just a little, just enough for Dominic to notice. But he did not reach for her immediately. He stood beside her with space between them, letting comfort remain an invitation instead of a claim. The Ellison bride stepped forward first. "I still want the cathedral veil." Her mother wiped under one eye. "And I would like champagne, immediately." A soft laugh moved through the boutique, gentle enough to let everyone breathe again. Evelyn looked at Amara and asked, "Should we continue appointments?" Amara looked around Vale House, at the women waiting, at the staff who had stood with her, at the gowns she had designed one sleepless night at a time, at the mirrors where so many women had come to see themselves differently. Then she nodded. "Yes," she said, "we continue." And that was the moment Dominic loved her most. Not when she stood against Marcus, not when she said the word that sent him out the door, but when she refused to let one cruel man take the rest of the day from her. The bride tried on the cathedral veil. Her mother drank champagne and stopped pretending she was not emotional. A client bought the pale gold gown. Evelyn moved through the boutique with controlled grace, though her eyes kept finding Amara, as if to make sure she was still there. Amara stayed until the final appointment ended. Only then did she walk upstairs to her office, where evening gold rested along the windows and soul moved below as if nothing had happened. Dominic stood near the door with his coat removed and the small wooden box still in his hand. "You came early," Amara said. "I did. Were you going to surprise me?" He held out the box. "I still am." Inside were pearl earrings. Amara looked at them for a long moment. "They are beautiful. They reminded me of you." She looked up. Quiet? Unmistakable. Her smile almost appeared, then faded. "I hate that he can still make me feel like the woman I was before I knew better." Dominic moved closer, slowly enough to let her decide whether she wanted him near. "He did not make you that woman. It felt like it. I know. He came into my store and said everything I was afraid people would believe." Dominic's voice remained steady. "Some people may believe him for a day. People who know you will not. And the people who do not know me? You do not build a life around strangers' first opinions," he said. "You protect the truth. The truth survives longer." By nightfall, the first video appeared online. It was blurry, incomplete, filmed from behind a rack of gowns, but it captured enough. Marcus's raised voice, Amara standing still, Dominic entering, and the question that made the internet pause. Would you like him removed? By midnight, the clip had reached fashion circles. By morning, strangers were speaking Amara's name with admiration, suspicion, curiosity, and hunger. Some praised her composure. Some repeated Marcus's accusation. Some wanted to know who Dominic Hahn was and why the air changed when he entered the room. And Marcus, humiliated by a silence he could not break, began doing what men like him always did when they could no longer control a woman privately. He tried to stain her publicly. In a private office across Seoul, Dominic opened a black file on his desk. Inside were documents Marcus believed had disappeared years ago. Financial records, contract drafts, investor messages, and emails sent late at night when he had been careless enough to admit that Amara was the real talent behind Vale House. Dominic turned one page, then another. His expression did not change. But when he spoke into the phone, his voice was quiet enough to frighten the man on the other end. "Start with the investors," he said, "and make sure every document is verified." Outside, Seoul glittered beneath the darkening sky. Marcus thought he had started a public war. He did not know Amara had already won the first battle without raising her voice. And he had no idea Dominic Hahn was about to make every lie he built his life on come due. Before sunrise, Vale House was silent in a way Amara Vale did not trust. During the day, silence inside the boutique had life inside it. Silk brushing against silk, brass hangers gliding along polished rails, Evelyn's heels clicking across marble, brides holding their breath before mirrors, mothers pretending they were not crying, stylists murmuring measurements as Seoul moved beyond the glass. But this silence was different. This was the silence after humiliation had traveled farther than truth could walk in one night. Amara sat alone in the office above Vale House while the city outside slowly turned from blue-gray to gold. Legal folders covered her desk. Old contracts, supplier records, design registrations, investor letters, printed emails, and couture sketches sat in careful stacks, as if the past had returned wearing paper instead of pain. Her phone lay face up beside them, glowing with headlines written by people who had not stood in the room and did not know what Marcus's voice had cost her. Former partner questions luxury founder's story. Viral boutique confrontation raises doubts. Who really built Vale House? Amara read the last headline twice, then turned the phone over. Not because it hurt less when she stopped looking, because she had work to do. Marcus had tried to drag her backward in front of her clients, and for one moment, his voice had touched the old wound. That was the cruelty of certain men. They did not always need new weapons. They memorized the first place you bled and returned there when your life became too beautiful for their pride to tolerate. But Amara was not in the old studio anymore. She was not 24, not waiting for Marcus to decide whether her dream deserved funding, not trying to make fear sound like gratitude. She was inside Vale House, with her name on the door and the records of her survival spread across the desk in front of her. Some quiet part of her had always known that survival was not only emotional. Sometimes survival was dated, signed, filed, kept. If you are still here, subscribe and stay with me. Marcus learns that the truth does not need to shout when it has receipts. By 6:30, Evelyn Cross entered with 2 coffees, a tablet, and the expression of a woman who had already chosen war, but was trying to keep it professional. "I brought the strong one," Evelyn said. Amara looked up. "Coffee?" Restraint. Despite herself, Amara almost smiled. Evelyn placed the tablet beside the legal folders and lowered her voice, though no one else was there. "Your publicist called twice. Your attorney wants to meet at 9. Mrs. Ellison sent flowers and a message saying her daughter refuses to buy her reception dress anywhere else. Also, the general inbox is full, and I deleted 14 emails before 7 o'clock because I value your blood pressure. Amara closed her eyes briefly. Evelyn's tone softened. I am sorry. For the emails? For the fact that people always ask women to prove they own the things they built. That landed closer to the truth than anything online. The tablet replayed the clip from yesterday. Marcus too close. His voice raised, Amara standing still, Dominic entering, and the question that had followed her into every comment section. Would you like him removed? The clip ended before the full truth could inconvenience the entertainment. Viral things often did that. They took the wound, trimmed away the context, and handed the world something easy to chew. His contacts are pushing the story that you silenced him because he knows the real origin of Vale House, Evelyn said. Marcus does not have a team, Amara replied quietly. He has people who enjoy mess until it costs them something. Evelyn looked down at the documents. It may start costing them soon. Amara touched the edge of one folder. We open at 10. Evelyn stared at her. Amara, Vale House opens at 10, she repeated. The boutique below them was still dark, its gowns resting in soft rows, untouched by the ugliness trying to reach them. Amara thought of Marcus, standing near the center display, touching her work as if disrespect were proof of ownership. Then she thought of the bride who had said, "Then neither do you." No closed doors, Amara said. No hiding, no helping him make this house look wounded. Evelyn studied her face, and whatever argument she had prepared dissolved. All right, she said. We open at 10. Dominic arrived at 7, entering the office without announcement because he belonged there by invitation, not assumption. His dark coat was folded over one arm, his suit immaculate, his expression calm enough that only Amara could see the tension beneath it. Evelyn took one look at both of them, gathered the tablet, and excused herself with the discretion of a woman who understood loyalty included knowing when to leave. Dominic stood near the window, looking down at the street. 4 photographers. Amara leaned back in her chair. Reporters? 3 reporters, he said. One gossip account pretending to be a reporter. That sounds worse. It usually is. She looked tired now, and only because she trusted him enough not to hide it. Dominic crossed to the desk and looked at the folders without touching them. That mattered to Amara more than he knew. Marcus had touched her garment without permission. Dominic stood before the evidence of her life and waited. My attorney wants caution, she said. My publicist wants emotion. Evelyn wants Marcus banned from every luxury district in Seoul. Evelyn is practical. And you? Dominic's gaze found hers. I want you to decide what protects your peace, your name, and your business, in that order. The words reached her quietly, but deeply. People always told Amara to protect the brand, protect the reputation, protect the company. They forgot that a woman had to live inside the name they were defending. What would you do? She asked. Dominic was silent for a moment. Protect the record. Do not chase every rumor. Do not argue on ground Marcus chose because he chosen to make you look unstable. He wants noise. Give him documentation. And if people want a story, give them one sentence they cannot easily twist. Amara looked down at the folders. Truth with a locked door behind it. Dominic's mouth softened faintly. Exactly. At 8:15, Amara sat before a camera in her office, with no dramatic lighting, no tearful performance, and no long statement drained of life by too many advisors. Evelyn stood behind the tripod, still enough to appear calm. Dominic remained near the window, out of frame, present without becoming the center. Amara looked into the lens and thought of the old studio, of the way Marcus used to say her name when he wanted her grateful, of the first morning she unlocked a door without him and learned that loneliness could become freedom if she survived the first hour of it. Then she spoke. Vale House was built over 12 years through original design work, documented contracts, loyal clients, and the labor of a team I am proud to lead. Yesterday, a former business associate entered our store and behaved in a way that was unacceptable. We handled it professionally, and we will continue serving our clients with dignity, excellence, and discretion. She paused just long enough for the room to breathe. Intimidation does not become truth just because it is loud. Evelyn stopped recording. For a second, no one spoke. Outside, Seoul had fully awakened. A delivery truck moved below. Staff entered through the side door. The boutique, despite everything, was preparing to become itself again. "Post it," Amara said. Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. "Now?" "Now," Dominic watched her with quiet admiration. "You did not ask whether it was enough." "It is enough because I am not using it to convince Marcus." "Who is it for?" "My clients," Amara said. "My staff, myself." Dominic nodded. "That is the correct order." The statement moved faster than Marcus expected, and differently than he feared. It did not fight his noise with louder noise. It simply changed the temperature of the room he had tried to control. By mid-morning, people were replaying Amara's calm voice in elevators, salons, offices, cafe lines, and cars paused at red lights. The original confrontation clip still traveled, but now it carried her statement behind it like a seal. Some people still wanted scandal, because scandal fed them. But others heard what Marcus had not expected them to hear. A founder protecting her team, a woman refusing to wrestle in the mud, a brand strong enough not to beg. Inside Vale House, clients arrived softly, as though entering a place that had survived something and become more precious for it. Flowers came from longtime customers. White orchids arrived with a note that read, "Your house is still your house." A stylist in Paris reposted the statement with one sentence: "This is how a brand protects its soul." Downstairs, Evelyn watched the comments shift on the boutique tablet. People began noticing what Marcus had not realized they would notice. The way he touched the jacket. The way he stood too close. The way Amara never once looked like a woman lying. By noon, appointment requests had doubled. By 1, 2 reporters had asked politely for interviews and been politely refused. By 2, Marcus posted again, longer this time, messier. He called Amara ungrateful. He hinted at financial arrangements. He used phrases like, "the truth will come out," and "people should ask questions," which was how weak men tried to sound dangerous when they did not yet know what evidence had survived them. Amara read the post once. Then she locked her phone. Evelyn, standing in the office doorway, asked, "Do you want to respond?" "No." "Not even through counsel?" "Not publicly." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Good. I had 3 drafts ready and all of them were unprofessional." Amara laughed, and though it did not erase the exhaustion, it did something almost as important. It proved Marcus had not taken the room. Across the city, the consequence Marcus expected did not arrive in the form he had prepared for. There were no men outside his apartment. No broken glass, no whispered threat in a parking garage. Dominic understood that violence would give Marcus something easy to explain. It would let him become the victim in the story he had tried to write around Amara. So Dominic gave him paperwork. In a private conference room beneath one of his legitimate investment firms, attorneys, advisors, and security staff worked quietly over contracts, emails, bank records, and stamped copies. The table was covered in paper, not weapons. That was what made it colder. Marcus could dismiss a threat. He could dramatize fear. He could call intimidation unfair. He could not easily argue with his own words. Dominic stood at the head of the table while his legal advisor separated the files into clean categories: investor misrepresentation, design misuse, false ownership claims. His chief of security reported that Marcus had contacted a journalist and offered unsigned drafts as proof that Amara had erased him. Dominic looked at the documents. "Verified every source twice." "We have." "Again." The legal advisor nodded. One email rested near Dominic's hand, printed on clean white paper. Marcus had written it years ago, when Amara had first left him, and he still believed he could force her back through pressure. "Amara is the brand. Without her, the designs have no value. But she needs pressure. If we control the money, we control the name." Dominic read the line once, then placed it back into the folder with such care that the room went still. "Send the verified packet to his primary investor first," he said. "Then the lender. Then the fashion council. Use counsel. No anonymous leaks." His advisor looked up. "You want attribution?" "I want procedure," Dominic said. "Marcus will look for a shadow to blame. Give him a wall. Everything would arrive legally, professionally, precisely. Letterhead instead of rumor. Verification instead of rage. The kind of consequence that did not shout because it did not need to. Celeste found the truth in Marcus's apartment because careless men often left evidence near the women they underestimated. She had not slept. The pale blue silk dress from Vale House was wrinkled at the waist, and one sleeve had slipped from her shoulder as she sat barefoot on the floor beside his glass coffee table. Marcus had left in a rage, shouting into his phone about damage control and ungrateful women, leaving his laptop open because he believed the people closest to him would never question the story he gave them. For a while, Celeste only stared at the screen. Then she remembered Amara in the boutique. Not jealous, not guilty, not desperate to win. Just calm in a way that made Marcus look uglier the longer he spoke. Celeste touched the trackpad. A folder sat open, Vale Early Docs. At first, the files looked like the proof Marcus had promised her. Drafts, contracts, old proposals. But the deeper she went, the more the story changed. There were emails where Marcus admitted Amara had created the first collection. Notes where he complained she was becoming too independent. Messages describing Vale House as if Amara herself were an asset to be controlled instead of a founder to be respected. Then Celeste found the sentence, "Amara is the brand. Without her, the designs have no value." She read it again. The apartment around her suddenly looked different. The glass table, the gray stone, the expensive art chosen by someone else and purchased by Marcus because it suggested taste he did not possess. Everything seemed polished to cover rot. Her phone rang. "Marcus." She answered on the third ring. "What?" he snapped. "Where are you?" "At your apartment." "Good. Stay there. I need you to. You lied." Silence. Then a laugh too quick to be real. "About what?" Celeste looked at the laptop screen. "About her." Marcus's voice changed. "Close the laptop." And because he knew exactly what she meant, Celeste finally understood everything. By late afternoon, Marcus sat alone in his office, staring at a phone that had stopped behaving like an ally. That morning, it had buzzed with opportunity. Journalists, contacts, men who loved scandal when they believed proximity might profit them. Acquaintances asking if he was all right, when what they really meant was "tell me more." Now it lay silent on the desk between his hands. His primary investor postponed their meeting, then canceled it. His lender requested clarification on historical ownership claims attached to collateral documents. A luxury hotel group paused a menswear collaboration pending review. The phrase "pending review" made Marcus sweat through his shirt because it sounded polite enough to hide the knife. He called Celeste. No answer. He called his attorney. Voicemail. He called the journalist who had promised interest in his side of the story. The reply came by text. "Need documentation before proceeding." Marcus threw the phone across the room. It struck the wall and fell onto the carpet without breaking, which angered him more. Everything around him refused to break properly. He paced before the window overlooking Seoul. Somewhere across the city, Amara was probably standing inside that boutique while strangers praised her dignity. The thought made something bitter rise in his throat. She was nothing, he said aloud. The office gave him no answer. He said it again, louder. She was nothing, but this time the sentence sounded less like truth and more like a man begging an empty room to believe him. His phone buzzed on the carpet. He snatched it up. A message from his attorney appeared. "Dominic Hahn's counsel has contacted relevant parties with documentation. Do not make further public statements. We need to discuss exposure." Exposure. For the first time since walking into Vale House, fear arrived without a mask. Not fear of Dominic's reputation, not fear of dark cars or dangerous men. Fear of paper, fear of old emails, fear of the version of himself he had written down before he learned to lie more carefully. Marcus demanded a meeting at 7. Dominic agreed to 8. Not because Marcus deserved the hour, but because waiting was useful. Men like Marcus did not fear silence until they were trapped inside it. The private club sat behind an unmarked door in a quiet part of Seoul, where the streets narrowed and warm lights spilled from small restaurants onto wet pavement. Inside, the walls were dark wood, the lighting low without becoming theatrical, and the air carried the faint scent of cedar and tea. Dominic sat alone at a table in a private room, a closed file resting near his right hand. No bodyguard stood beside him. No weapon was visible. No performance waited for Marcus to enter. That made Marcus angrier when he walked in, because he had dressed for war and found a man sitting calmly with paperwork. You think you can ruin me? Marcus said. Dominic did not rise. No. Marcus's mouth tightened. No? You ruined yourself, Dominic said. I only removed the curtains. Marcus laughed sharply. You had no right digging through my business. Dominic lifted his eyes. You walked into hers. The sentence struck cleanly enough to make Marcus pause. Then he reached for the cruelty he trusted most. She was nothing when I met her. Dominic watched him with a stillness that made the room feel smaller. That is why you hate her. Marcus scoffed. I do not hate Amara. You hate that she became everything after you. Dominic said. Not because of you. After you. That is the part you cannot survive. Marcus's face flushed. You do not know what happened. I know what you wrote. For the first time, Marcus looked at the file. Dominic opened the folder and slid one printed page across the table. Marcus did not pick it up immediately. He stared as if the paper itself were dangerous. Eventually, his eyes dropped to the highlighted sentence. Amara is the brand. Without her, the designs have no value. But she needs pressure. If we control the money, we control the name. Color drained from his face. Dominic sat back. There are more. That was taken out of context. Of course. I was angry. Clearly. You have no idea what it is like to build something with someone and watch them cut you out. Dominic's voice remained calm. You stood near the foundation and mistook proximity for ownership. Marcus lifted his eyes. You did not build Vale House, Dominic continued. You were present while Amara was building it. There is a difference, but men like you often confuse being in the room with being the reason the room exists. Marcus's hand closed over the paper. You are threatening me. No, Dominic said. A threat asks for something. I want nothing from you. Then what is this? A consequence. The words settled in the room with more weight than shouting ever could have carried. Dominic placed another document on the table, then another. Lender inquiry, hotel termination, fashion council acknowledgement. Each one clean, formal, devastating. You wanted an audience, Dominic said. You have one now. Investors, council, industry boards. Everyone who trusted your version of the past. Marcus's voice dropped. What do you want? Dominic stood. Stay away from Vale House. Stay away from Amara. If you believe you have a legal claim, file it. If not, disappear quietly enough that she never has to hear your name again. And if I do not? Dominic buttoned his jacket. Then the rest of the documents become very interested in meeting more people. He moved toward the door, then paused. She did not need me to defeat you, Marcus. Remember that. I am not the reason you lost. I am only the reason you finally noticed. Then Dominic left him sitting with his own words spread across the table. When Marcus stepped out of the private club, the night air hit his face cold and clean. His driver was not waiting, which was the first small humiliation. His phone held no rescue, no message from Celeste, no return call from his attorney, no reassurance from investors pretending this could be managed. Only one new email from the hotel group. The collaboration was no longer pending review. It was terminated. Marcus stared at the screen until the words blurred. Across the street, a couple passed under one umbrella, laughing softly. A delivery driver sped by. Soul did not stop. It did not care that the version of reality Marcus had used for years was collapsing in his hands. He looked into the dark glass of a closed storefront and barely recognized himself. Rumpled suit, pale face, wild eyes. Not the man who made Amara, not the owner of the past, just a man who had mistaken a younger woman's fear for permanent power and was now watching that power disappear. The next morning, Amara received Ms. Hyjin Park in the office above Vale House. Ms. Park was elegant, late 40s, and famously difficult to impress. She had been in the boutique during Marcus's scene, standing near the mirrors with an expression so composed that Amara had not known whether the incident had cost her the partnership before the conversation even began. Now Ms. Park placed a cream folder on Amara's desk. I had planned to discuss next year's capsule collection yesterday, she said. Amara nodded. I understand if the timing has changed. It has. Amara's face remained still. She had prepared for rejection. A woman who built from nothing always kept a small room inside herself ready for disappointment, even after she no longer lived there. Miss Park opened the folder. The scale has changed. Amara looked down. The proposal was larger than anything they had discussed. Stronger placement, international visibility, a seasonal luxury campaign, and creative authority preserved under the Vale House name. For a moment, Amara did not speak. Miss Park watched her carefully. Luxury is not fabric, Miss Vale. Fabric can be copied. Luxury is discipline under pressure. Yesterday, I watched a man attempt to destabilize you in the one place you should have felt safe. I watched you protect your clients, your staff, and your brand without lowering yourself. That told me more about Vale House than any presentation could have. Amara touched the edge of the folder. Marcus had come to ruin her in front of this woman. Instead, he had revealed exactly what Miss Park valued most. Not control over others, self-possession. I would like my attorney to review it, Amara said. Of course, and Evelyn will be included in operational discussions. Expected. Vale House keeps creative authority. Miss Park smiled. Required. For the first time that morning, Amara smiled too. That evening, after the final client left and Evelyn locked the front doors, Amara remained alone on the boutique floor. The lights were dimmed, but Vale House did not look dark. It glowed in cream and gold, the gowns resting in their places like quiet witnesses. Outside, the city moved in ribbons of headlights. Inside, everything was still. Amara stood near the center display and touched the pearl-embroidered jacket Marcus had handled. The sleeve had been cleaned, the beads checked, the garment restored. Still, she adjusted the cuff. Not because it needed adjusting, because she did. Victories had come all day, public support, Marcus's silence, Miss Park's offer, Celeste's short message, I am sorry, you were right. But strength did not prevent pain from arriving. It simply meant pain did not get to drive. Dominic entered quietly from the side door. Amara did not turn at first. I thought you had a meeting. I ended it. That sounds ominous. It was efficient. A faint smile touched her mouth. He came to stand beside her, not crowding, not asking too soon for feelings she had not yet arranged into words. For a while, they simply stood in the warm quiet. Then Dominic said, You won today. Amara looked around the boutique. No, she said softly. I stayed. Dominic did not correct her. That was one of the reasons she loved him. Amara's fingers brushed the jacket sleeve. Years ago, Marcus made me believe surviving meant leaving parts of myself behind. Speak less, want less, shine less, need less, be less. Her voice trembled, but she let it. Yesterday, for 1 second, when he stood too close, I felt that old instinct again, to shrink, to make it end faster, to explain until he allowed me to stop explaining. Dominic's voice was low. But you did not. No, you did not leave yourself. The words reached her before she was ready. All day, people had called her strong, composed, elegant, inspirational. But Dominic had named the real victory. She had not abandoned herself. Not for Marcus, not for clients, not for the internet, not even for peace. I did not leave myself, she whispered. Dominic took her hand, turning it gently in his. Marry me this weekend. Amara blinked. Dominic, I'm serious. We already have a wedding date. That date was chosen before yesterday reminded you that joy should not be delayed simply because pain once taught you to wait. Outside, rain began tapping against the boutique windows, soft and silver beneath the streetlights. Amara searched his face. You want to move the wedding because Marcus humiliated me? No, Dominic said. I want to move it because you stood in the middle of a storm and still chose your life. I do not want one more beautiful thing delayed out of habit. For years, Amara had treated joy like something to schedule after every emergency ended. After the debts, after the boutique stabilized, after the next collection, after the next threat. After she became the kind of woman no one could hurt anymore. But that woman did not exist. No one became untouchable by never being hurt. A woman became untouchable when hurt no longer convinced her to abandon herself. Dominic lifted her hand to his chest. I am not asking because you need rescuing. I am asking because the life we want is already here, and I am tired of giving old pain the authority to postpone it. Amara looked around Vale House, the store that carried her name, the gowns that carried her hands, the mirrors that had watched so many women become brave for themselves, and the man standing in front of her, powerful enough to take over, and wise enough not to. "What about the guests?" she asked. "We invite the ones who matter." "The venue? I know a place." "Of course you do. I am useful." She laughed softly, though tears had gathered in her eyes. Her answer came quietly. "This weekend." Dominic's expression changed only slightly, but Amara saw the relief move through him. "This weekend," he repeated, and kissed her hand like a vow before the vows. They married at sunrise 2 days later, not in a ballroom filled with people who loved proximity more than love, not under chandeliers chosen for photographs, not before society guests who would whisper about Marcus, Dominic, and the viral video as though Amara's life were a drama staged for their entertainment. They married on a private terrace above Seoul, where the city stretched beneath a pale gold sky and the first light touched the towers softly enough to make even power look gentle. White flowers lined the aisle. A violinist played low and warm near the entrance. Evelyn cried openly and pretended she was not. Miss Park attended with quiet dignity. A small circle of chosen family, loyal staff, and trusted friends stood as witnesses. Amara wore a simple ivory gown of her own design, luminous without overwhelming her, the embroidery delicate along the bodice like morning frost. At her ears were the pearl earrings Dominic had brought her the day Marcus tried to humiliate her. As she walked toward him, she thought of the first room above the bakery, the broken heater, the invoices, the younger woman cutting fabric on a table too small for her dreams. She wished she could reach back through time and touch that woman's shoulder, not to warn her, to tell her she would stay. Dominic waited at the end of the aisle in a black suit, his face composed until he saw her fully. Everyone else saw a feared man soften. Amara saw the man who had waited outside her battle until she chose him, the man who gave her the question instead of taking the answer. His vows were steady. He promised not to protect her because he believed she was fragile, but because he respected the peace she had built. He promised never to confuse standing beside her with standing over her. He promised that in every room they entered, she would remain herself. Amara promised not to disappear inside love. She promised not to make herself smaller to be easier to hold. She promised to love him as herself, not as a quieter version of herself. When he placed the ring on her finger, he whispered so only she could hear, "No one gets to make you small again." Amara looked at him through tears that did not feel like weakness, not even me. And when they kissed, Seoul brightened beneath them, as if the day had finally been allowed to begin. Amara opened Vale House herself. She could have taken the day off. Evelyn had insisted. Dominic had suggested it carefully, which meant he knew better than to instruct her. But Amara did not want to disappear. She wanted to open her own door. She arrived before the staff, wearing a cream blouse, tailored black trousers, her hair swept back, and her wedding ring catching the first light as she turned the key in the lock. For a moment, she stood beneath the gold letters of Vale House. No Marcus, no shouting, no cameras close enough to matter, just mourning. Inside, the boutique smelled faintly of roses and silk. The gowns waited in soft rows. The mirrors reflected a woman who looked the same as she had before and not the same at all. Across the street, Dominic's black car was parked beneath the ginkgo trees. He was not coming in, not yet. He was simply there, visible if she wanted to look, absent if she needed the room to be hers. Amara smiled. When Evelyn arrived through the side door, carrying garment bags, she stopped at the sight of Amara. "You were supposed to be on honeymoon." "I am. This is the boutique." "Yes," Amara said, looking around. "And it is part of my joy." Evelyn's face softened. At 10, the first client arrived, a woman in a charcoal coat with nervous hands and tired eyes. She apologized for being early and admitted she had almost canceled because she had a board meeting that afternoon. Amara understood the tremor in her voice, not the details, but the shape of it. A woman preparing to enter a room where someone expected her to shrink. "What are we dressing you for?" Amara asked. The woman hesitated. "To survive the room." Amara looked toward the racks, then back at her client. "No," she said gently. "We will dress you to remember you belong in it." And that was how Vale House continued. Not as a place untouched by ugliness, but as a place where ugliness had entered, failed, and been shown the door. By noon, the official notices regarding Marcus Layton circulated privately through the industry. His partnership was terminated. His investors requested formal review. The Fashion Council opened an ethics inquiry. His public post stopped. His attorney issued one careful statement requesting privacy, which was the language men used when truth finally became less useful than silence. Celeste sent Amara one final message. I believed him because it was easier than asking why he needed me to hate you. I am sorry. Amara read it once, then typed back. Choose better for yourself. No comfort, no cruelty. Just truth with a locked door behind it. Subscribe before you go. This is Stella Korean drama, where women are underestimated, tested, protected, and finally seen but never erased.